Associates of former Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani are headed to federal court for alleged campaign finance violations. Soviet-born Florida businessmen Lev Parnas and Andrei Kukushkin are accused of making illegal campaign contributions to U.S. politicians in order to advance their own business interests. Parnas and another associate, Igor Fruman, initially made headlines in 2019 after donating hundreds of thousands to Republican political action committees supporting former President Donald Trump. The pair also put Giuliani in touch with officials in Ukraine during his attempt to start an investigation into President Biden's son, Hunter. Giuliani's work in Ukraine is under criminal investigation, but he has not been charged in this case. CBS News legal contributor and former Manhattan prosecutor Rebecca Roiphe joins me now with more. Hi there, Rebecca. So in 2019, Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman were accused of making donations to U.S. politicians in order to advance the interests of a Ukrainian government official. Now, that official wanted U.S. Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch removed. She was a key figure in the Trump impeachment proceedings. Prosecutors have since dropped that allegation. And I wonder, Rebecca, is it clear why, and what will the trial focus on instead?
I think it's not entirely clear why. I think from what the reporting says that the prosecutors really wanted to streamline this case. Now, there's so much of interest about and around this case because, as you said, Lev Parnas was this central figure, the connection between Rudy Giuliani and the Ukraine that was the subject of the first impeachment of the former president. So clearly there's a lot of interest, but the case itself is fairly simple. So I think what the prosecutors are trying to do is focus the jury on the facts that they need to decide in order to determine guilt in this particular case. And to the extent that they are investigating any other facts, that isn't really going to take center stage during this trial. So what they are going to focus on instead, that was your second question?
Yeah,
what they are going to focus on instead, I think, are the two, essentially what these counts kind of divide up into two different schemes. One is to funnel money from a Russian national to U.S. politicians. That's forbidden by campaign finance laws, and that makes up part of the counts in the indictment. And the second half you also mentioned was using this straw donor, which is also forbidden, to funnel that $300,000, a little bit over $300,000, to the Trump Political Action Committee. And so I think those two things are going to be the focus of this trial, not so much his role in the facts that led to the first impeachment, which of course people are very interested in. Now, I think you might find a few dots that you can connect because these facts aren't totally distinct. But I think if you're looking to really figure out what happened there, that this trial is going to disappoint.
Well, given that focus that you laid out, Rebecca, what do you think the defense is going to look like?
So I'm pretty sure that, this is essentially kind of like a fraud case. And if you read the indictment, the prosecutors have portrayed Parnas particularly as a kind of low-level fraudster. And so in a case like that, if there are a lot of facts that are documented through emails and other, texts, WhatsApp messages, it becomes hard for the defense to contest what actually happened. And instead, what the defense does is focus on intent. So I expect to see that here, where the defense is going to suggest that Lev Parnas is, not very well educated. He didn't really know what he was doing. He never intended to do anything wrong, and he didn't really understand what he was doing. So he lacked the requisite criminal intent to have committed these particular crimes.
Well, can we expect to see any new information about former President Trump or his lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, come out of this case?
So I expect to see not much. I do think we will have a little bit more background information. How did Lev Parnas come to be connected to some of the figures who are then in turn connected to the first impeachment proceeding and maybe to the former president? Those facts might be, something that a journalist could dig in there and find some information. But I don't think we're going to expect to see much. And that's partially because there's an ongoing investigation, as you know, into Rudy Giuliani, and we don't know what's going to happen with that investigation, whether they're going to close that investigation or whether it will end in charges. But certainly, I don't think that the government at this point would want to tip its hand. So it's not going to unnecessarily put out facts, related to Rudy Giuliani and that ongoing investigation in this trial, especially since they can try this case in a fairly streamlined way without bringing all that stuff up.
And I just wonder, bottom line here, Rebecca, what is it that you're going to be watching for here as this case unfolds? Because these are names that, at one point we were hearing quite a bit of just a couple of years ago. What is it that you'll be looking for here in the weeks and months ahead?
Well, it's a couple. I do think that those little facts here and there will be of interest to people who have been following these threads. And, some of these threads just haven't fully been tied up because, as we know, that the impeachment was sort of aborted in the House and never proceeded to a full trial. So I think it would be interesting to people to find out, who is this character? How did he get connected to Rudy Giuliani? How did he get connected to all these politicians? So I think that certainly is something that I'm looking for. And, there's another question about, broader of import to the nation as a whole, which is the question about these campaign finance laws. To me, they're extremely important because they protect our elections against foreign interference, and they also create transparency. And while that sounds a little dull, it's actually extremely important. It's how we ensure against corruption. So, to me, how successful can a prosecutor be in bringing these cases? Because it seems increasingly important that we enforce these laws and make sure that we do our best to assure the public that our elections are clean and that they can be trusted. And so, in a different way, sort of aside from Trump, I think that the trial is important on that level as well.
All right. A lot to think about there and a lot to track in the months ahead. Rebecca Roiphe, Rebecca, thank you very much.
Thanks so much.